I think, a lot of what we're facing is an energetic and spiritual battle, I guess you could say. And I think in order, if you're afraid of these people, you're giving them power over you. And I think really the only way to win this is to have your commitment to, what you're fighting for, the good about humanity, to be total. So what we're having is the engineering of a neo-feudal society where you have the small upper class and then a massive underclass that the upper class can manipulate and control and, do whatever they want with as they see fit. I think there's a lot of people in Congress that get into Congress campaigning on certain issues, and then once they're there long enough, they backtrack completely.
Whitney Webb has been sounding the alarm for several years about an impending transformation in the global monetary system. She argues that this shift is poised to replace the Bretton Woods system, with blockchain technologies, particularly central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, at the forefront. According to Webb, this new monetary framework will have profound implications for everyone. She identifies three major players orchestrating this transition: the World Economic Forum, WEF, BlackRock, and the primary influencers within the US government. Webb warns that the widespread adoption of blockchain will lead to the tokenization of everything, a move she believes will primarily benefit the wealthy, thereby exacerbating existing inequalities. This tokenization could mean that access to resources and economic power will become even more concentrated in the hands of a few, further marginalizing the poor. Webb also frames this transformation as part of a larger conflict, likening it to World War III. She suggests that the scale and impact of this economic shift could surpass previous global conflicts. In her view, the changes being implemented are not just about financial systems, but represent a broader struggle over control and power in the modern world. The implications of this shift are vast, potentially affecting every aspect of life, from how we conduct transactions to how economic power is distributed globally. So let's listen to more clips of her from this interview. But before that, make sure to like the video and subscribe the channel if you haven't done yet.
There's been a push for several years, but now it's gaining an insane amount of momentum and steam. But it really goes back several years. And the goal is to have a regulated internet, which means the end of online privacy and anonymity. And they want to do this by having people link a government-issued ID to their internet access and internet activity.
Who is they?
So in the U.S., it's come from the government, but it's not. A lot of government policy, whether it's about this or something else, doesn't come organically from the government. It comes from think tanks. It comes from groups like that, or even the WEF, the World Economic Forum, that are then given to politicians, and politicians legislate and enact it, and then the state enforces it. But it's not necessarily the ideas of the legislature and the state itself, these policies. And more often than not, these think tanks are funded by corporations and billionaires and all of these guys. And they also own the politicians, so it's really them creating the policy. And they use the state as an enforcer to force it on the public, right? So that's, I guess, the global public-private partnership is what my colleague Ian Davis calls they, right? One of the earliest iterations of it, at least in the United States, was during the Obama administration. They called it a driver's license for the internet. The idea of, in order to access the internet, when you set up, internet connection at your house, the internet service provider links all of your internet traffic to your ID. And in doing so, the government and the signals intelligence arm or intelligence agency of the government then has access to not just everything you're posting and writing online, but also everything you read. I think there's been a major effort to control the media and how much information gets to the American public about all sorts of things. If you look at the Epstein case, you're only allowed to talk about his sex crimes from 2000 to 2006. Don't look at his financial crimes or any of the thing he did before the year 2000 is, pretty much how mainstream media handles the case. And that's pretty, there's a lot to find if you go back farther. So in terms of what we're talking about with government, regulation of the internet and all of this, it's coming, right? We're already seeing the first signs of it here. There's an obvious push to censor more speech and link people's speech to their ID and have it more surveillable than ever before. Gutting encryption, why do they want to do that? So they can read everything that you say. and all your transactions, follow them all. There's a similar effort in crypto and specifically with Bitcoin to criminalize mixers and criminalize any sort of service that affords you increased financial privacy. So it's already started, but what I'm trying to say is that like where they want to take this, if anyone uses a mixer, they can go after you. That's what they want to set up. They don't want anyone to have financial privacy or online privacy anymore. And that's what part of this agenda about a regulated internet is. And it directly ties in with stuff like a central bank digital currency, at least what people are concerned about a CBDC for, which is the surveillance capability and the programmability aspect. It's all tied up with this effort to regulate the internet, which isn't really fair to say it's regulating the internet. It's more like taking complete control of the internet, a complete coup of the internet for unprecedented surveillance and control of people's online lives. At the same time that you have these same entities pushing for people to live their lives online as much as possible, as part of the fourth industrial revolution and all of this other stuff. Like we saw in the COVID era, we're locking down. You can't go out and do stuff in the physical world. You have to be online as much as possible. Education's online. Work is online. As much of your life as possible has to be online now because you can't go in person to the bank. You can't go in person to this. You should order your groceries through your phone and all of this stuff, So they're pushing us more and more into the digital realm and at the same time preparing to take more control of the digital realm than they have now by a significant degree. And that's not a coincidence. I'm sorry if you think that's coincidental. That's very naive.
So yeah, centralization I think is part of it, but also I think there's a lot of people, psychologists specifically, that work for, the public relations industry or propaganda arms of governments, for example, or intelligence agencies that have studied very closely how to manipulate human behavior with technology. And I think when you consider that like a lot of social media companies have their origins with intelligence, or if they didn't at the beginning, they certainly do now. And how they know that, the like news feeds on social media can be used to manipulate people's emotions or manipulate how people perceive events and reality. They leverage that. And to think they don't leverage that, I think would be really naive. So as an example, one that's like sort of well-known and easy to find if you search for it online, is Facebook attempting to study how to manipulate people's emotions to make them feel like more negatively, like intentionally make them more depressed, by bombarding them with like largely negative news on their news feed, right? And so, we can assume that they do that with all sorts of things and specific events. And when you consider the fact that we know now, and we've known for some time, quite frankly, that a lot of these companies, for example, selectively censor things, they're trying to cultivate the public's perception of events and reality and all sorts of different things.
According to Webb, major financial institutions and corporations have already begun implementing this agenda, with the expectation that governments worldwide will eventually fall in line, leading to a new world order that could significantly impact individual freedoms. Webb argues that firms like JP Morgan, Fidelity, and BlackRock are actively acquiring substantial amounts of Bitcoin, not just as an investment, but as a means to establish a monopoly and exert control over the global financial system. She believes these corporations already wield immense power, owning or controlling vast swaths of the global economy. The concept of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, as described by Webb, is seen as a tool to push people towards increased online engagement. This digital shift, she argues, provides these powerful entities with greater opportunities for control and surveillance. Webb points to recent incidents of teenagers facing legal consequences for their social media posts as evidence of this growing online control. Webb also highlights the involvement of psychologists working with governments and intelligence agencies to subtly influence public behavior, encouraging increased online activity. The goal, she suggests, is to create a more compliant population that only sees and interacts with information curated by these controlling entities. Ultimately, Webb believes that the only effective response to this alleged agenda is for individuals and communities to refuse compliance. She advocates for the development of parallel, decentralized structures at the local level as a means of preserving freedom and autonomy in the face of these global changes. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.